How's it going, baseball fans? Welcome back to the channel. I thought of doing something a little different this time. A couple of weeks ago, the baseball world lost a legend, a true baseball giant, to honor a player who was among the 5 greatest ball players of all time. This video will mostly be about the say-hey kid from Alabama, Willie Mays. The man known as Buck to those who knew him. He played with style. He played like he absolutely loved the game, because he did. He was such a joy to watch by all who had the great fortune to do so. He didn't care about anything else, just baseball. There'll never be another Willie Mays. He's truly a one of one. He was a baby that started walking at nearly 6 months old. Would one day take a flight to St. Louis for an all-star game on board the Air Force One with President Obama. That's just how respected he was. He was playing in the Negro Leagues while he was still in high school. While playing AAA baseball in Minneapolis for the Giants, he was supposed to be there most, if not all season, but he played so extremely well that he got called up a month into the season. He phoned Giants manager Leo DeRocher and said, "I'm not ready. I can't hit the big league curveball." Leo says, "What are you hitting now?" May says, 477. Leo says, "Get your ass up here." He started out pretty rough in the majors, going 1 for 26. The one hit was a homer off Hall of Famer Warren Spahn. Spahn said, "I'll never forgive myself. We might have gotten rid of Willie forever if only I'd struck him out." At the time, life was really hard for Willie, often in tears. Thinking he didn't belong, his teammate Monty Irving tried as best as he could, helping him get through it all. DeRocher told him to just play defense and they'll take care of the hitting. On July 25th, 1951, just 2 months into his big league career, Pirates' Rocky Nelson poked a long fly ball deep to left center. Mays sprinted as hard as the rookie could go. After realizing using his glove was no longer an option, he reached with his bare hand and caught it. He couldn't stop smiling after that. As the inning ended, he raced to the dugout. Willie was expecting praise from his teammates, but nobody in the dugout moved. Complete silence. Willie said, "Leo, did you see that catch I made?" Leo says, "No, Willie, I didn't see it. Can you go out there and do it again next inning?" With that, all his teammates raced in with happiness and disbelief. Pirates GM Branch Rickey said, "The finest catch I've ever seen and the finest catch I ever hope to see." One time, facing the Dodgers, Carl Furillo hit a ball deep to Mays in right center. Willie Mays made an incredible Superman dive for it. After making the catch, he jumped back onto his feet and threw a missile back to the infield, gunning down the runner. After the game, reporters asked Dodger manager Charlie Dressen what he thought of that play, and Charlie said, "I'd like to see the son of a bitch do it again." One time, Leo DeRocher said, "If he could cook, I'd marry him." The day before Willie was set to report for duty in the U.S. Army during the Korean War, his Giants were playing in Brooklyn. In normal circumstances, the Brooklyn crowd should have hated him, especially the year before, when the Giants stole the pennant from the Dodgers. But on this particular day, they cheered for him, knowing he was going to fight for his country. To them, that's all that mattered. It is now 1954. The Korean War costed him most of the 1952 season and all of '53. With that behind him, he helped lead the Giants to the '54 World Series. In today's game, the deepest outfield wall is in Colorado at Coors Field. standing at 415 feet from home plate. But back then, the Giants played at the famous Polo Grounds, and their center field wall went 483 feet, a baseball mile. Now with the score tied at 2 late in Game 1, Cleveland's Vic Wertz hit a blast deep into center field with runners on first and second. As the ball is still sailing, the Indians are probably liking their chances of winning. But incredibly, Mays makes the catch. Nobody thought he was going to get to that ball. Nobody. Pitcher Don Little was on the mound that day. Willie caught what is now known as the catch. The next year, Willie overheard Little's 6-year-old boy, Craig, say that he needed a glove. So the next day, Willie gave him that same glove that he used to make the catch. Craig used it until he was 10 years old, when he finally realized the treasure was. Today, that glove rests safely away from silly 6-year-old boys on display in Cooperstown, New York, at the Baseball Hall of Fame. He was terrible with names and was constantly being introduced to strangers. He would follow his greeting with a question. He'd say, "Hey, how are you doing?" Or, "Hey, where you been?" Reporters started to notice and began to point out how often he would say, "Hey." He became the Say Hey Kid. He would run so hard he kept losing his cap. Willie loved the fans' reaction when his hat flew off, so he started wearing caps that were too small for him, just to give the crowd a thrill. Buck O'Neill said, "There were men faster than Willie Mays, but I never saw one faster with a fly ball in the air." One time when the Cardinals were in town, Willie invited Cards first baseman Bill White over to his house. Bill had Bob Gibson tag along with him. Gibson was known as an intimidating pitcher who liked to throw inside, but Willie didn't know Gibson wore glasses off the field, so when Willie answered the door and saw Gibson with his high-pitched voice, he said, "You wear glasses? You're gonna kill somebody." Don Drysdale told Don Sutton that you gotta knock Willie down when you throw him sliders. The first time he did that, Willie ended up getting a double in that at bat. On the next pitch, Don threw a wild pitch. Willie rounded third and kept coming. Sutton's now covering home plate. Mays was going to come in spikes high, but at the last second, he slid around him. Mays said to Don, "I could have gotten you, kid. Just remember that when you come high and inside." He had these huge hands. He'd bet you anything you wanted that he could catch a pitcher's throw from the mound, any pitcher, and catch it barehanded. After he retired with the Mets, he stayed on as a part-time coach, but by the middle of games, he wanted to play so bad that he would just change clothes and leave. The pain was just too great. In 1979, he got banned from baseball for taking a greeter position at an Atlantic City casino, as did Mickey Mantle did in '83. Both would get reinstated in 1985. But could you imagine getting banned from baseball for 6 years because you say hi to people? Bob Costas once said, "Willie Mays, at his best, not only could do everything, he made you smile watching him do it. He reminded you of why it's such a great game. He was like a little kid playing ball at the highest possible level of a grown man's skill." On a personal story, by the time I was old enough to play baseball, it had been over 10 years since Willie last played. But even as a little kid, I knew who that was. I not only knew his name, or what he looked like. I knew the catch. The same catch that he made at the Polo Grounds in New York City in the 1954 World Series. I started attempting the Willie Mays catch as a young boy in the late 80s, early 90s. And it wouldn't stop there. Throughout my whole life, every time I ever attempted one of Willie's over-the-shoulder catches, I would yell, "Willie Mays!" About a year ago, I was fortunate enough to go to Cooperstown to visit the Baseball Hall of Fame. While we were there, I got to play on the famous Doubleday field, thanks to my big brother Kurt. And of course, I tried recreating the Willie Mays catch on a field that he most likely played on. It's got to be the most famous catch of all time. And finally, there's a guy named Tony Kornheiser who he's one of the hosts on the show. Pardon the interruption. It's been on for over 20 years. And after Willie died recently, he said, "Willie Mays is not the greatest hitter of all time. Ted Williams is. He's not the greatest power hitter of all time. Babe Ruth is. He's not the greatest base stealer of all time. He's not the greatest fielder of all time. He doesn't have the best arm of all time. I think Roberto Clemente has the best arm of all time. But Willie Mays is in the top 3 to 5 in all those categories, in every one. He's the most complete baseball player who ever lived. He may not have been the best. He's not the most important, Jackie Robinson is, but he is the most complete baseball player that ever lived." Well, that'll do it for this episode. Thanks for watching. Please consider liking and subscribing. See you at the ballpark.